Did we close the hearing already?
Yeah, I'd already
Okay.
closed it.
Then I move that we recommend for approval the
Rezone?
rezone, yeah. Just trying to-
Is there a second? Okay, motion fails for a second. We get another motion.
Okay, I move that we deny the motion for rezone. We gotta do one or the other to talk about it at least.
Yes, we need a second.
I'll second for discussion.
All right, discussion.
There's a lot of stuff to look at here. We've got residential area that's gonna be impacted with the industrial site. These were very good statements that were made as to why it ought to, or things to be cautious about, and there's a lot of stuff that can be looked at here. And then I appreciate the tree line being honored there, but up to how long and who's gonna be maintaining the dead trees that actually fall later on and stuff to that nature, because I know that there's a property line that runs through that tree line too. And it'd be nice to maintain that, mainly to keep the separation of the residential from the industrial so that it doesn't affect their property values or what they're already accustomed to, so.
What else? What is we concerned about? Mary?
I mean, I understand the concerns, but I also know that right next to this property is a lumber yard. So, I mean, it's not like there's not some heavy trucks moving in and out. I mean, if this is a replacement project for the one on Graham, that they are by residential houses as well. It's grown up a little bit more. I'm sure they're trying to get off Graham Street because of the traffic and congestion. To me, it makes more sense to feed those heavy trucks out onto a highway than onto one of our residential streets. So, I feel like this is probably a good move. I don't, it doesn't sound like this project is gonna be as much industrial as it's gonna be more commercial, more, business in nature. And so I realize that the rezone itself will allow for some other things, but it sounds to me like Encore is really just looking to relocate their business office. And yes, that does come with their trucks, which are heavy in nature, and it will, they will have parts, but, it seems they've been a good neighbor in the area that they're currently in. I don't see them becoming a bad neighbor just because they're relocating.
And it's not necessarily the trucks that are the issue, it's the other possibilities, such as the communication tower. They are real close to a high transmission line that would also indicate that they have the option to put in a relay station there too, so.
But I
Also,
think-
I'm sorry,
Oh,
go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Two quick thoughts that come to mind. Just at a glance, it looks like it could possibly be spot zoning, which could open up possible litigation. It's also an issue where potentially 20 or 30 years from now, if they were to sell the land and move somewhere else, since it's zoned industrial now, or if it were to be zoned industrial, that could allow something else to come in that the nearby homeowners would find to be a lot more egregious. So there are future considerations as well.
Steve, is there a commercial zoning that would allow what they need that isn't industrial?
No, ma'am. Industrial was the
The
whole
only,
fit.
because of the outdoor storage?
Yes, ma'am.
What about a planned development?
Planned development may be a possibility, but with the timeline that they were looking at, that would add at least 60 days to the window.
Okay.
I think that was why we chose to go with industrial instead of planned development. As far as the spot zoning, if I may, I mean, we do have, if you look in the staff report at the maps that are included, currently have a industrial zone or I'm sorry, that's retail and commercial right up the road. And then as you look at the future land use map, I mean, you're right in stating that there's not anything around there industrial, but we do have retail and commercial right in the general vicinity. The only thing that, for this particular use that we're looking at industrial is because that's the only use that would allow for the outside storage. And we don't have that, we don't have a site plan in the packet, but we do have a site plan where they've illustrated what the site will look like, conceptually speaking. So there's a huge amount of a distance between the residential and the actual building for the administrative offices with outside storage, of course, in the backside of the property. So we do have that site plan, if we can pull that up. Mr. Cogburn, please. And that might help address some of the concerns that I leave up to you, Madam Chair.
And on the storage, do you know what, other than poles they'd be storing there, if they'd be doing transformers or anything else that might be hazardous?
So why don't you go ahead and, do you know?
There would be some transformers, but the transformers now, they are just filled with mineral oil. They don't have any, the old ones have carcinogens in them, and it's just mineral oil, so it's not a health hazard.
And right now, the Graham Street site doesn't have pole storage, so the poles are stored in Eastland. So when there is a need to come out and respond to a call for, to set a new pole, it definitely takes longer. So with this facility being located within the city, it would also provide for a quicker response time locally.
Okay.
And I'm also kind of concerned with the drainage, because that will go through a residential area eventually.
Drainage study will be done.
Drainage would be addressed through the development review.
Yeah, and the trees, they will be maintained, so Encore is part of the project, and the owner of the property will be responsible for the maintenance of the trees. So any maintenance that needs to be performed, if there's any dead limbs or deadfall that needs to be addressed, that would be part of their typical operation and maintenance of the facility itself. And then, as you can see, there's FEMA Zone A that's currently located on the kind of the northeast area of the site. So when we do the actual design, we do a drainage analysis, downstream assessment, and then as we've got shown on that site plan, we would provide detention so that we would not increase the runoff rate of the site.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. King, you have
Oh, Mr. Gang, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Just wanted to visit a minute about how we got here today. So probably, 2 years ago, Encore decided that they needed to relocate. That's not their property on Graham Street. They've actually leased that for years. And so originally, they were gonna go outside of town. But the leadership of their company said, that's not really what we want to do, and sent word back that we want to be in the community that we serve. And so their real estate folks have worked extensively with me on trying to locate property in Stephenville. Some was not suitable at all, and others, I guess the nice way to say it, Pat, is that they weren't very successful in discussions with property owners. And so this was kind of one of their best remaining options, I think, for all concerned. And certainly in my capacity, I'm looking at that response time as we do have things that occur in the community, whether that's winter storms or other kind of things. And so we have been in a bit of a crunch with the way things are currently, and all those extra materials stored, up on the interstate in another county. So, it was kind of, I think for all of us, weighing, some of those concerns. We knew drainage we can address during the development process and those things. And then they certainly said, hey, we understand the screening and we want to keep that. And so that's kind of what's led us to where we're at today.
All right, thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right, commissioners, I guess I'm leaning toward approval myself because approval of the rezone. I hear everybody's concerns. I hear the fear about what industrial could be. I think the limitations are more in our zoning because we don't have zoning that allows for what they need. And so I see this as the only way for them to do this. The actual site, I think, will be fine. So I'm inclined to go with approving the rezone request. That's how I'm gonna roll. Y'all ready to vote? Do we need more discussion? All right, so the motion that currently stands is to recommend to council denial of this request. So I'm gonna go one by one because the wording is a little tricky. So do you vote to deny this, to recommend to council denial of the rezone request?
No.
No. Justin?
Yes.
Yes. Mary?
No.
Me, no. Brian?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
And Bonnie?
No.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4 no's, 1, 2, 3 yeses. Did I get it right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so by a hair, we are going to recommend to council approval of this rezone request. Or, well, we are going to recommend to council, no, to approve the rezone request.
Not.
Your action,
We are
your
not.
motion was to
To
deny.
deny.
So you have
We
To
we are
not
going
to.
to recommend, we are going to
Did
no, the
basically-
motion failed.
The motion.
The
failed.
motion failed. And so what will stand is approval, and it's, whew,
Mm,
well, the motion failed
there
to
would actually
deny.
be no recommendation, since the motion was to deny, so it will be no
No
recommendation
recommendation.
going to council.
Okay. All right, next up, case number RZ 2023-010, applicant Encore Electric Delivery Company LLC, representing Allen Real Properties LTD, is requesting a rezone for property located at West Lincolnville Road, being parcel R22557, acres 10.925, A0520, Menifee Jarrett of the city of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas, from B1 neighborhood business to industrial. Mr. Killen.
Madam Chair, this is basically the exact same case, just a different parcel. This parcel, the only delineation other than ownership and parcel size is that the future land use is actually multifamily. Same situation, I believe they were wanting both rezones approved for the plan that they have before us with the conveyance. But in essence, it's the same request as what we just heard, so be glad to answer any questions.
Any additional questions for Steve?
Okay, I know it's not part of this that we're looking at, but it is part of the property at large, but the piece that's being odd-shaped on the next item. Oh, let's see, the industrial is gonna go the entire track on this, if we pass it, instead of just what they're gonna be having.
It would be the same as what was on page 13, if you could pull that up, please.
Okay.
The exact same conveyance,
Just what's purple? Just the purple part,
just the purple, yes, sir.
okay.
Page
So
13, I
it will go all the way
believe
to
it
the
is.
highway on that track?
No, sir, there would be
Okay.
frontage. Both properties would have frontage. Dr. Gibbs' property would have frontage along Lincolnville Highway, and Mr. Allen's property will also have frontage, as you see illustrated on the purple is the only part of the rezone that we're considering for those respective parcels.
Okay, so everything outside of that won't be rezoned industrial?
Maintain this exact same,
Okay,
currently zoned, yes, sir.
all right.
Does that L shape run up to that the Good Tree Road. Does that cut it?
I don't
across?
believe so. I don't think that's the case, no, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, before we open a public hearing, do Encore people have anything they'd like to add? Okay, then I'll go ahead and open a public hearing. Does anybody here wish to speak in favor of this rezone request? Anybody wish, sir, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Rhett Harrison, 1735 North Dell. I wanted to visit with y'all real quick about this entire process with Encore. And I've been a resident there and for roughly 30 some odd years. My property borders theirs to the west side. I am on the residential side, probably one of the oldest residents in that area as far as owning property. But here's the way that I see the situation. As far as any of this rezoning, I am concerned about the industrial side of it, because once that you go industrial, then that gives them flexibility to industrialize things. But here's the thing in a nutshell that I think probably makes this whole thing tolerable. They say that they want a 30-foot barrier with the trees. That needs to be 80 feet. And if it were 80 feet in writing, I think that it would make a lot of difference. I'll tell you why. I have measured, like I said, I have lived there for years. There are oak trees that are in this thing that are 100, probably 150 years old. They're 80 feet tall. You can't see through this barrier. And really what I'd like to see is more of a nature area, like don't touch a thing for 80 feet extending onto their property. There's animal habitat that's there. There's so many different benefits that I think would help them as far as helping us as well. But the 30-foot aspect is just not enough, and I'll explain why. Under this canopy of the tree line, there is a huge gully. It is significant. It carries a ton of water through that thing. That starts at the very back of our property. Our property stakes extend about 2 feet down into this. Most of the trees are on their side of the property. 30 feet, the gully is 30 feet across. So if they just maintain 30 feet, then that's going to completely take out that green space. I mean, you're going to be able to see through it from both sides. And, like I said, I think that there are some things that need to be considered. Honestly, I'd like to see Encore over there. I visited with Terry Testerson. Is that correct? Kesterson. Visited with him today, and I think they have good intentions with the property. Of course, several of y'all know that I've been on city council and like to see the property developed. I believe in developing Stephenville, but it needs to be at a certain juncture where that it's good for the residential people that have already been there and the others and Encore themselves. And I think by establishing a bona fide, in writing, natural area, and that's where the fence is now. The fence is set back roughly 80 feet. The tree line is right up on top of it. That's all that's in between it. And anyhow, that's what I would like to see.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
Anybody else wish to speak in favor of this rezone request? Does anybody wish to speak against this rezone request?
I'd like to speak in favor of it.
Please, sir, come up to the microphone and give us your name and address.
My name is Danny Clark. I live at 1611 North Dale, and I'm neighbors with Rhett. And like you said, that tree line, it is a buffer. And without that tree line there, they would be able to see in our backyard, we'd be able to see in their backyard. But the nature of it, it's very beneficial to all of it. Like you said, with that drainage that comes through there, the tree line goes right up to that property line, and it's beneficial for the area. So I agree with Rhett.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Appreciate your time. All right, does anybody else wish to speak in favor or against this rezone request? All right, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners?
Why does it always be? All right, I'm going off. That's all right. That's I'm gonna recommend that we. I guess I move to that we. Do I have to go the same way I did last time, or okay? So I'm gonna move that we recommend approval of this rezone request. Can I get a second for discussion?
Can we get a second for discussion?
Can we do it with,
A condition?
With the conditions?
With a condition?
I don't think we can.
I don't think we can.
Okay.
But I'm glad to, if you will
I'll second
second
it.
it,
Okay.
then we can, because
All right.
I'd like to say a little something on that.
All right, go ahead, Mary.
Having now heard from some property owners, I still feel like Encore would be a good neighbor, but they have some concerns about the extent of the buffer in their backyard, that will be in their backyards. And it's frustrating when our own zoning laws don't address these kinds of needs or issues. And I realize that you're kind of between a rock and a hard place, because, like I said, I feel like you're here. You wanna do right by everybody, and you want to be a good neighbor. But that's I
Okay.
understand that concern, and
Yeah.
and if the buffer zone isn't, if we can't adjust it, then I don't feel like we should allow this rezone.
Okay. Other,
I agree with that. I think the 80-foot would be a benefit to everybody if that's something feasible for Encore to do. And it'd also be kind of nice to have it in writing, as Rhett put it. That way that there's,
I think that's not something within our.
Yeah, I
purview.
don't. I was gonna say, I don't know if.
Yeah, we
it's not
simply,
within our purview, but
yeah, we
I
just
I
need
would
to
go
approve
along
or
with
deny.
something like
Yeah.
that.
What's the motion?
So the motion stands to recommend to council approval of this rezone request. So that's where we stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a stand. There was a second. Okay, so shall we vote, unless there's additional discussion? Yeah, we've already closed the public hearing. Do you have additional, well, all right, go ahead.
Thomas Fletcher with Kimley Horn on behalf of Encore. I just want to say that looking at our plan and where we're at as it's relative to the trees, we feel like we can preserve all of the trees along that back property line. We feel like that's a reasonable request from the neighbors, and we can accommodate that. I'm not sure, I know the way the zoning law works, you can't codify that into the motion. I think Encore's management would write a letter to that effect that we could probably see if we could bring back for a city council meeting, but we don't see any issue. And again, we want to be good neighbors, and we are committed to save the trees along that back property line.
Thank you, sir. I think, I think this would be best addressed at the council when you go before them, walk in with that. As far as we're concerned, we simply need to make our
Yeah.
decision based upon what we can, regardless of that. So what currently stands is recommending to council approval. So I'm just going to go down the line once again. So remember, this is to approve the rezone request, starting at the end. You're a yes?
Yes.
Justin?
No.
Mary?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 yeses and 2 noes, so,
2/3 it passes.
so that, we will recommend to council approval of this rezone request. Okay, so we've got dueling things here. Okay, finally, case number CP 2023-001, applicant Encore Electric Delivery Company LLC, representing Cam Woon Ip and Allen Real Properties Ltd., is requesting a conveyance plat of properties located at West Lingoville Road, being parcel R22664, acres 11.918, A0520, Menifee Jarrett, and West Lingoville Road, being parcel R22557, acres 10.925, A0520, Menifee Jarrett, of the city of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas. Mr. Killen.
Madam Chair, this is an interesting replat request now with the actions that we had on the rezone. I think on this, if the commission basically did not place conditions on it because it's simply a conveyance plat. So if the conveyance occurs, then the plat should be approved. So I believe the condition would be if the zoning actually happens or not for the full property. But that will be, instead of placing a condition on the approval of the plat, I believe that will be addressed by through the acquisition itself. So I think in this case, it's just P&Z either recommend approval. Well, actually, it's not going to go to council, it's just
It's just done
conveyance
right
plat.
here.
And for the record, conveyance plats happen across the city
Yeah.
without our involvement on a routine, if not daily basis. So just action to approve or deny.
Okay, but do we have to have a condition if the zoning,
I would not do that. As I
Simply-
mentioned, I think if the council does not approve the zoning, then more than likely the acquisition will not occur and it'll just
Gotcha.
die.
Okay.
Subsequently.
okay. All right. Let's, do we have anything to add regarding this conveyance plat from Encore? No. Okay, I'll go ahead and open a public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of this conveyance plat? Does anybody wish to speak against? Close the public hearing. Commissioners?
I move that we approve the conveyance plat.
Second.
And second was Nick. All right, do we need to discuss? All those in favor of approving the conveyance plat, say aye. Aye. Those against?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, so, all right. All right, so the conveyance plat is approved, I suppose pending the zoning, whether it actually is gonna happen. This is kind of a messy one, ladies and gentlemen. Do we have a
Yeah, sorry.
motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Yes. Thank you all for coming for this long, strange trip. And as you know, the city council meets tomorrow, correct? Where this will be picked up. So, thank you very much.